A little bit about our speakers. I'll go ahead and go first. So I'm Jonathan Musler. I'm Director of Technology Solutions here at Compliance Group. My background is in application lifecycle management. Spent roughly 25 years in that space in the regulated industry, specifically with medical devices. I've helped multiple companies build, deploy, and monitor their ALM systems that are used for non-product software validation, as well as design control, risk management, and V&V testing. I'm joined today with David DeLuca and Benjamin Duncan. So David, why don't you go ahead and give yourself an introduction?
Yeah, hey everyone, happy Wednesday. So I'm Dave. I lead the consulting team here at CG. My background is many years in medical device R&D and manufacturing. So I've lived a lot of the issues that we're going to talk about today. And yeah, here at CG, we lead a lot of the validation projects, business process transformation projects, and technology projects. So excited to talk shop with you all today.
All right. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're tuning in. My name is Ben Duncan. I work in Dave's strategic consulting team here at Compliance Group, coming to CG with a background in product development and medical devices. You'll see design assurance there on my title, but also have some vast experience in manufacturing and process development. So looking forward to speaking with everyone today.
All right, so a little bit about Compliance Group. Our mission is to enable the fastest path to quality excellence, and that encompasses all the areas of design quality in the regulated space. Our vision, we want to make quality frictionless. Overall, we've been in design spaces, quality spaces, manufacturing, and quality is not always viewed in great light. We want to take that friction out, make quality easy, help our customers and our clients to really find a way to make quality products as quickly as possible. That said, today we're here to talk about the problem. That is the topic of the webinar. So for this, I'm going to pass it over to Dave. So Dave, if you want to go ahead, I will go to the next slide.
Yeah, I would love to, John. So yeah, you can jump to the next slide now. So the problem here, let's back up a little bit and look at process risk analysis in 2025. So there's a few tools that we use to basically track our process risk management. One of them is that's used very consistently at medical device and pharma companies is the process risk and failure mode effects analysis. So that's pFMEA. pFMEAs, they're a critical component of translating a product's design into manufacturing. So I like to think of them as a recipe for controlling and validating your manufacturing processes. So a few things that they do, right? They link process steps to product risk. They help identify high-risk areas that may need detection or prevention controls, such as in-process inspections or testing methods or other different means to control and detect the problems. And they also are used as a guide to determine what process validation requirements you have, whether that be sampling or acceptance criteria, right? So it helps take a risk-based approach to process validation, which we know is very important in the eyes of the regulators and in general industry best practices. So let's say, for example, right, we're manufacturing a vascular catheter assembly process. One process step might be bonding the catheter tubing to a hub using a UV curable adhesive. So this step can be identified as critical, pretty critical, right? Because if the bond fails, it can lead to a device failure in the body, which to me sounds like a pretty big patient risk. So the pFMEA is kind of that device to bridge the bonding process directly to the critical to quality attributes, which would be the integrity of the catheter bond. So pFMEA would help identify the different ways that the bond could fail, right? What the causes are, whether that be UV exposure or the amount of adhesive volume or variability in the bonding technique or fixturing that's used. And it would help guide the process development teams on what in-process controls they would use, and then how many samples they would need to use for validation, and what their statistical confidence reliability would need to be on the process validation side of things. So in this case, right, talking about that, the pFMEA helps translate the design intent into a robust, controlled process. And without it, right, we'd only be able to detect these failures downstream, or even worse, in the field. So that's a little bit about pFMEAs. Now, another tool that we use for process risk analysis in today's day and age is manufacturing execution technologies. So back to kind of the catheter bonding process example, pFMEA identified the process step as high risk. We implemented controls, but how do we ensure that those controls are followed every time? How do we prove it, right? So that's where MES type systems come into play. So MES or similar device history records or batch EBR technologies provide real-time visibility of the critical manufacturing data, so they can help track critical process parameters, with statistical process controls. They can help link critical quality attributes, help with in-process control checks and specifications, equipment, operator, material, and other critical manufacturing data for traceability, and then obviously any anomalies that happen in the manufacturing process, like defects, deviations, non-conformances, out of spec product or manufacturing characteristics. So if you look at pFMEA kind of as the recipe, the MES system is more like the chef and the sous chefs, really making sure that the recipe is being followed, and really automating that design history record that you have. So pFMEA identified the risk, and MES ensures that every part of the process is controlled, verified, and documented. So it's a closed loop, and risk management feeds the process, but MES ensures compliance and traceability at every turn. So overall, these two technologies, they sound pretty hunky-dory, right? But there actually are some problems with what's going on in the use of these two electronic solutions, or these two solutions, right? So there's a missing link, and we're going to talk about that missing link a lot today, in connecting real-time manufacturing defect data to our risk management file for our products. So when we create our pFMEAs, usually they're created earlier in the product life cycle, during the design and launch phases. So prior to actually getting a lot of lots out there in the field, right, we're creating these process failure modes, and we're assigning subjective probability values based on assumptions. So we're saying, okay, well, based on the few lots that we've done, or predicate devices, our experience using this process, we think that it's going to fail 1 in 1,000 times, or you're going to see it 1 in 100 times, or 1 in 100,000 times, right? Just giving examples, but that's what how we're weighting our probability. Then we're doing our risk control measures and process checks and process validation, and saying, okay, now we're in a state of control. The risk threshold is lower, and I'm going to continue to monitor and update it. But in reality, I don't really see that happening, right? We don't see that happening at CG. So they're updated infrequently. And when they are updated, right, it's driven by process or strategy changes, not by trends in real-time manufacturing data. So what we've seen is some companies have tried to create kind of a standard cadence for periodic review and updated risk levels, but it's been heavily manual and honestly piecemeal at best. So that's why, here at CG, we've seen kind of an opportunity to improve the pFMEA MES connection. So if we look at that opportunity, what we see here is the ability to use that live manufacturing defect data that we're capturing in our MES systems, our EDHR systems, or EBR systems, and link those into the process FMEA. And we know that this this is being used in other areas, other risk management areas, right? So if you look at like a hazard analysis, we're taking our adverse event, we're taking our complaint data, and we're having that feed into our P1, P2, or P2 values, right? And changing the weight and triggering kind of a proactive, like, hey, we need to revisit this, or we need to see what's going on to do corrective actions. So by being able to trend that process risk data, it's going to help us with our analysis, and it's going to help us be able to make changes that are going to improve our products and our end of the day, the safety of our patients. So, and one of the biggest things too that we've seen is that there's no real centralized location for manufacturing or quality leaders to see where your risk is, what your risk is, what is the impact on my business. So all that being said, thinking about those opportunities, you might be asking yourself, is it possible to learn this power? You might be sitting in Anakin Skywalker's shoes trying to figure out, hey, can we actually do this? Well, today we're here to show you that it is possible. So
So yes, as Dave said, we do have a solution for this gap between these two very important, very manual, and generally disconnected processes. That's what we're here to talk about. So specifically, CG has created the pFMEA risk alert application. It's a Mendix application that connects those dots between your fairly static pFMEA failure modes, as well as your electronic MES systems, or even if you're using Excel-based more manual systems, it will help bridge that gap and show you the connection between them. Looking at the live defect data from your MES or EDHR, EBR systems with the process risk reports, it will help recalculate that risk level. So we can refer to that as a live RPN. As Dave said, when you do your pFMEA, you're looking at your risk priority number, but it's based on a set of assumptions and is generally static until something happens or until there's a trigger for periodic review, something like this. This application helps pull those together so you can see, set alerts, set thresholds of this is now a problem and we need to address it before it becomes a very big problem. So that's the threshold being exceeded. It can pull in financial information. Not all failures, not all issues in manufacturing are created equally. So looking at, what is the financial impact of this actual issue in our manufacturing, in our live manufacturing? What is the compliance risk for it? And how should we enable operations, quality, and finance to act quickly? And then finally, it can integrate into various ALM systems, ERP systems, or even spreadsheets. We're aware, not everyone is using highly complicated MES systems to do the control manufacturing. Not everyone is using an electronic system like Polarian to perform FMEAs. Many of these processes are still based on Excel, so we have the ability to integrate with highly complex enterprise systems as well as spreadsheet-based data. So at this point, let's actually go ahead and pull up the application, and we'll do a quick step through of the application itself. So this is what you're seeing is the risk alert application. As we said, it's a Mendix application, and for everyone who's unfamiliar with Mendix, it's a low-code, no-code platform developed by Siemens that can be used in a wide variety of ways. This obviously has been used to create this pFMEA application. It is a native mobile application. For purposes of the webinar, we're showing it in a website, not on a phone, but this works for, your mobile phone, tablet, web page, wherever you have it. The application is the application, and you get to see the data where you need to see it. You can see we have all of this information broken out in 4 separate ways, but in reality, it's looking at the same base set of data. This is helping people look at what is most important to them. So in this case, let's start with our alerts page. So if I pull up my alerts, and we're seeing this is all of my manufacturing data for a large med tech company. We can see we have some pretty big problems in our manufacturing. We have a lot of things showing up on alerts, a lot of RPNs that are very high, but we can see immediately what plant it is, what product line is causing it, what the process area is, what is the financial impact, who do we contact about it, all of the defect information, and the related batch or batches that's driving this information. It's completely interactive. If we are interested in only certain product lines or process areas, we can search for those. It will restrict all of the results. We can also sort to see if we're interested in, I only want to see high level what's going on at a specific plant or a product line or a process area. Once we bring it up, we can see a little more information. This is not a great record, but it can help understand who do I need to contact about this problem. If this were on a mobile device, you could immediately reach out to them via phone call or email. That said, sorting by plant, searching it this way is not always the most effective way to see your data. That's why we have it broken out into separate areas. So here we can actually see live gauge charts of our plants. As I said, this is a large manufacturing company. We have plants all over the world, and we have problems. Every single one of our plants is in the red, and we need to find out why and address this. For this, let's go ahead and take a look at our Galway plant. And once we click on that, we're simply seeing the information specific to the Galway plant to see what's really driving it. So if I come back here to plants a moment, the current live RPN of the Galway plant is 93. If I look at it, we can see that this product line for the endoscopic instrument, specifically the heat treatment area, is what's driving our RPN for that plant. Similarly, if we want to simply look at product lines, we can look at that. And across all of our various product lines, we can see what's working, what's not. Here we have fixed wire balloon catheters. That is healthy. Dialyzers are healthy. Fluid management and some other items are unhealthy. If we're manufacturing or if we're having these product lines across multiple plants, we can pull it up and it will show us a list of all of the plants where that product line is manufactured and see which plant specifically is driving any quality issues. Likewise, if we're interested in specific process areas, it works the same. Again, this is always looking at the same set of data. It's helping visualize it in different ways and helps people focus on the information that's truly important to them. This is, as we said, very customizable, very configurable. We have this connected to Siemens Polarion to drive the pFMEA side, and for the RPN data, we're using Excel to pull this in. We do have an integration to Siemens Op Center MES and can be configured for other MES systems as desired. So at the end, you'll have the contact information for compliance group if you're interested in implementing this, but as we said, it is a very highly configurable tool that can be really used to visualize and respond to this data. So at this point, we'll go ahead and go back to our presentation to kind of tie some of this together. And for this, I will pass it over to Ben. So Ben, why don't you go ahead and talk through this example that we're using?
Sure. So thanks, Jonathan, for doing the demo of the app itself. On this slide, I'd like to talk a little bit about a real-world example where the app data has actually fed back into the pFMEA process. So if you focus on the bottom half of the screen, we have this generalized failure mode of misaligned components, and the team initially validated it at a risk priority number RPN of 90, corresponding to severity of 10, detection level of 3, occurrence level of 3. So this would have assumed that they would see this defect only 1 in every 100,000 products made, but they're actually seeing through the app data that the global defect rate across all sites has spiked up to 1 in 1,000, which corresponds to a much higher RPN. So that is their risk. And now they need to isolate where the risk is. And through the connectivity to all their different sites, they've been able to isolate that they are seeing this spike at the Springfield plant. And that particularly at that plant, it's a particularly high rate of 3 in 100 or 3%. And so they send their team on the line to put out the fire, and they discover that there's actually been damage to this press fixture where these two components are aligned. And they see that this is a new failure mode that their original pFMEA didn't capture, and that the damage to this press fixture might have been caused by an operator named Homer after he tripped with a platter of donuts in his hand. But anyways, this isolation that they're able to get from the app data allows them to basically attack the problem to put out the fire. So they're resolving it by updating their pFMEA with this new failure mode, making sure the RPN is accurate. Any changes they need to make to the fixture, to the work instruction, to redesign it, have the operators verify alignment, can all happen concurrently as they revalidate the process. And then the key here is that this live data integration you get from the app allows them to monitor it quickly. So the periodic review doesn't have to be 3 months or 6 months down the line. They can look in like the next week post implementation of these fixes that it was actually resolved, and that this business impact of monthly yield loss on product or some number of product that they've lost in revenue from complaints has actually gone away. Go to the next slide, Jonathan. Thank you. And so this is also just tying together how the app data can feed into the documentation process. So in our use case, we just talked about the pFMEA has a new failure mode identified. It might be a new line item that comes into it. And so this app is basically the source of that data. So if you bump it to a new revision with this new failure mode added, the app can export reports that you can put as your justification. You could attach it to your change order. You could attach it to the pFMEA itself, but there's connectivity and justification from the data in the app that you can bring back into your document management process. Next slide, please. And again, I just want to emphasize the scalability across global sites. Not only can you implement this across many sites globally, but also a key piece of value coming out of the app is that you might get a single source of truth. Everyone should be aware that the app is displaying the same type of failure mode, no matter where you're looking at it from or which site it pertains to. And that can just help with a lot of communication gaps you might have across teams about what is this defect rate, what does this mean, any kind of gaps you have in communication or in handoff of information.
All right. So at this point, we'd like to take some questions if anybody has any. Looks like there was a question sent. So can the app be configured to specific user roles? So a global operations lead can see everything, whereas a local site manager would only see their plant's data. Yes, compliance group having a long history and being very plugged into the FDA and compliance, we look at everything with user roles, security permissions, things like that. So this app is completely configurable, so we can do exactly that. You can have global administrators who have ability to control all of the data connections, things like that. Global operations that has views into, just as said, specific plants, and then site managers can look at specific their exact plant, or if you have a manager who is local, responsible for multiple sites but not all sites, we'll be able to configure visibility to those sites alone. And let me check if there are other questions in the chat so far. I am not seeing any questions. Bhavna, if you have other questions, feel free to drop them in and we can answer them as they come in. All right, looks like as of right now, we have no questions. If that's the case, we'll go ahead and wrap up here. I'd like to thank everyone for participating. As said at the beginning, this webinar was recorded. We will be sending out the recording to everyone. Our contact information is on this last slide. You can see our website. Please feel free to reach out. Again, my name is Jonathan Muslar. David DeLuca and Benjamin Duncan were my co-presenters. And if you're interested and think of questions after the webinar ends, feel free to reach out to any of us and we're happy to discuss this with you. So thank you everyone for participating and have a great day.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Thanks all.